relationship with Christ, which sounds pretty basic for Christians, but it's something that I think a lot of us probably falter on in our journey to follow Him quite often, because there's a real difference between seeing God as deity or thing per se, something to attain to or to know about, and someone to have a relationship with. And those are two different concepts. I guess this last week, how many of you guys had someone over to your house for Thanksgiving? You have a bunch of family over? Yeah? Sometimes when that happens, I guess a lot of you guys didn't have anybody over, eh? I only saw about 3 hands go up there. But, so you escaped for the weekend, did you? Okay. Well, there's quite a bit of dynamics that can kind of happen relationally when you have a lot of people over for Thanksgiving, especially depending on the relatives you invite, right? And some of the food that gets cooked and this type of thing. So if it's really good food, all the men are very happy and they continue to eat too much. And of course, the women are always saying to me, would you like some more? And I would say, yes, of course. Would you like some more? Absolutely. And I keep eating, but then they forget to inform me that there's actually dessert afterwards as well. And, a guy is about wanting to go lay down and on the floor and really take a nap during that, just after that time. And then they want you to get up and go do dishes. Okay, and that's where, the whole thing might start, where you might have some different comments and stuff that they can kind of get you into trouble, right? I've had uncles and stuff over at the house sometimes, and maybe they don't like how you cook the yams or something. Well, my sister or my mom cooked it differently, or that could really get you in some good spots as well. But anyway, relationships during Thanksgiving can get a little interesting. However, originally, why we do Thanksgiving, like last weekend there, was to thank God for the things that He's done with us in a relational form, Because when you're thanking somebody, just the interaction of that's not something that takes place because, how do you put it, because you had a transaction where you did your part and they did their part, per se. You say, in the Canadian way, we say thank you, but we don't really mean it. When you have what's called Thanksgiving, you're interacting with the other person, right? Because you're expressing your thanks for what is done or for who the person is, and this type of thing. But in order for there to be a relational impact in this type of thing, especially between us and God in that Thanksgiving, there has to be some sort of interaction. There has to be some sort of person-to-person discussion or movement for ideas and different things of that nature to take place in order for there to actually be relationship. Okay? And this is what I'd like to talk about a little bit about today. And I understand that this is something that is spoken of quite a bit in churches to a degree, but we sort of talk about the assumption of it rather than what actually is the process of that. Okay? When I first met Sherry, my wife, I've told you this before, I saw her driving in a car with her father, and my eyes lit up. The first time I saw that woman, I went, I like her. And I chased her around. Like, if she was in the gym, I went to the gym. If she was in the cafeteria, I was in the cafeteria. She liked ping pong. I liked ping pong. I was all about ping pong. That's just how it kind of went. And then one day as we were talking, after a couple days, I found out she liked peanut butter parfaits. Okay, now you may not know about this, but at Dairy Queen they make these things called peanut butter parfaits. They got chocolate and peanut butter, and this type of thing in it. And so I was going into Swift Current with a bunch of these other idiots, and we were going in, and I talked them into stopping over at the Dairy Queen, and I picked up a peanut butter parfait. Now, the heat was still on September. This is like early September in Saskatchewan, so there was still sunshine out. All right, and it wasn't 30 below. So I had to get them guys to turn on the air conditioner, and it was like a 45-minute drive back to the Bible college. So I'm trying to keep this thing from melting, and it is kind of disintegrating a little bit. But I get back, And I was able to go over to the girls' dorm. Now, in those days, okay, you have to understand that there's no way a guy would approach the girls' dorm to them. So I was yelling for someone to come out, and finally a girl came out, and I said, "Can you get Sherry?" And when I gave her the peanut butter parfait, it happened. There was relationship that took place. It was an amazing concept in life. All right? But you know, if we hadn't gone through all that deep stuff like that, could you say we had a relationship? And you may say, what do you kind of mean? But if you didn't go through the process of talking to someone, interacting with somebody, could you call that a relationship? How about if I just saw her in the car and I went, "Oh, I like that one," but then I didn't talk to her? Could I say I was in a relationship? You may say, "Okay, Mel, you're kind of weird." Because there's no way. That's kind of more like stalker, and that's kind of creepy, right? But think about it. This type of thing sort of functions in relationships sometimes. So you have relationships with people, and then you don't have relationships with people, right? Depending on how much interaction you actually have. Correct? Let's just say, now I started dating, well, I shouldn't say that. Before internet was functioning whatsoever, I was dating and stuff. I had no idea about how to get on the internet and find a date. Okay, now nowadays, as far as I understand, I could be totally wrong, so please feel free to correct me on things. But I hear you go onto a different site with dating and you type in who you are, what you look like, what you're interested in, you put a profile up and you hit it and it goes up on the web or whatever. And someone else does that. And their profile goes up, and if you're looking through the process, you go, "Oh, I like that one." It's kind of like the car driving up, except on the computer, right? And you say, "Okay, that's great." Now, let's just say if you printed that off and you had it, but you didn't really know the person. Is that a relationship? Not really, because you haven't made contact, right? But what if a guy said to me, he said, "You know, Mel, I met this great girl." I said, "I got this great girl." "Oh, awesome. When did you meet her?" "Oh, well, actually, haven't met yet." That would start being kind of creepy, wouldn't it? And you say, "Well, what happened here? What's going on?" "Well, you know, what I do in the mornings is I get up and I take her profile because I printed it off and I grab a cup of coffee and I go sit on my couch and I have a sip of my cup of coffee and I read her profile. And I know her. She's awesome." Does that work? No. But it's funny because most Christians, that's how they would almost describe their relationship with God. Right? Get a cup of coffee in the morning, grab the Bible, read the profile. How does that work out? I guess a lot of people, in terms of how they're processing their relationship with God, maybe has missed a little bit of, not just a little bit, but oftentimes have missed some major steps in developing their relationship with Him. And so this is what I'd like to talk about today a little bit. Right? And you have to remember that this has happened quite a bit, all right, in the culture of Christianity and in the culture of the Jews, all right? And the Bible talks about this type of thing on a constant basis. Like, for example, the reason the Jews really did not like John the Baptist, as a lot of you would probably know, is because John the Baptist was all about being baptized, right? And baptism was how a Gentile would become a Jew. All right, so if you were a Gentile and you wanted to become a Jew, the Jews would make you get baptized. What it meant was you need to change your life. So you were dunked into the water deep so that it recognized that you were dead and now you were alive. So you're dead to being a Gentile, now you're alive to being a Jew. But John the Baptist was telling the Jews, "You Jews aren't even Jews. You're just Gentiles that are looking like Jews. So go get baptized. And that's why the guys that were teaching in that time, the pastors of that day, just hated John the Baptist because he was mocking what they were doing as being wrong. He was basically saying, you guys call yourself Jews, but you do not have a relationship with God. You're Gentiles. And I think often that can take place in the church. All right? And this is one of the things that we need to kind of understand this. Because there's a huge difference between knowing about God and knowing God. All right? There's a big difference between knowing about God and knowing God. And that's something that if you're a believer, well, you better understand that. Like I know a lot about Donald Trump. I know a lot about Putin. I know a lot about Justin Trudeau because they're all on the news, right? But I don't really know them. And if I said I knew them, I'd be lying to a degree. But I'd know about them, right? There's a big difference between knowledge and interaction. We as Christians cannot be satisfied with only knowing about God. We need to know Him. That's a big thing. That's a huge thing, actually. You know, when I go home and I meet Sherry, she comes home from work too, and we chat. I say, how'd your day go? And you gotta remember, she's a care aide, so there's a limited amount I want her to share with me. All right. And so anyway, when we talk, but the reason I'm actually asking her these questions is not so I can write it down in notes. Although it may be intelligent for me as a husband. Sherry likes lemon pie, or, that would be actually good to remember these type of things. All right? If that was the case. All right? I don't even know what kind of pie she likes. That's the bad part. Okay, I'm getting convicted now. I should write down these things. But that's not the reason I ask her, right? When I come in the door, it's because I actually want to know how she is doing. How come? Because I have a relationship with her. That means I care for her. That's a very interesting part of relationship, isn't it? I care for her. This is something with God that doesn't always gel into our person because He is, right? The funny thing is, just because we know a lot about a person doesn't necessarily make us know the person. Sin came into our life and we were separated from God. That did not stop God's ability to know about us, right? He knows how many hairs we have on our head, guys. In fact, how it's phrased is that He knows, He's actually numbered the hairs on our head to the point where, okay, if you've lost a hair, okay, which I'm sure most of us have not lost too many, right? I have more hair than anybody else in my family, but it's just a matter of time, and it's all going to go. I know this. But He knows when we lose one. Okay, and He'll go, that's number 785. That's how much He knows of us. He knows huge detail with us. But He was still not satisfied with that. And sin stopped us from having that interaction, with God. And that's why the death of Jesus was so important, is because the sin that happened in the Garden of Eden, originally with Adam and Eve, it broke our relationship with God. And God did not go, oh, that's okay from my end. I know about them. Because before, He would walk in the garden and He would chat with Adam and Eve. He actually likes us. He wants to interact with us. as a person. All right? But this has been broken by sin. And because we are not able to do that, he had to send his son for us to die on our behalf. And he went through quite a bit to have that accomplished. But the reason he did that is because he wanted relationship with us. And this is why the death of Jesus is so important. Now, when you begin to interact with God, all right, you go from what I would call a static position, or something that is unmoving, to something that is more dynamic. So more from a religious standpoint to a relational standpoint. And we'd just like to go through the process of what that looks like right now. Static means something that's stationary, okay? Well, so it doesn't move. Like, for example, if you took in a great illustration, if I took a can of beans and I put it on a weigh scale and it weighed a pound, it would always continue to weigh a pound. If I brought it back the next day, it would weigh a pound, right? And that's if the scale was accurate. But if I went and got it again and I put it back on the scale, the next day after that, it would also weigh a pound, right? But after Thanksgiving, if I stepped on the scale before Thanksgiving and then after Thanksgiving, would it be the same? No. It would fluctuate. It would be more dynamic. All right? And relationships, all right, are dynamic because you have people that interact with each other. And God is person. Okay? He also has emotion. He gets angry. He gets happy, mad, glad, and sad. There's parts of that with him, also with us. However, we can often mistake static relationships as dynamic. Like, for example, if you go through Tim Hortons, all right, and you ask for a coffee and you pay, and they, you have this interaction and they're very friendly, right? And so you could say that's relational. It's relational, but it's quite transactional, right? It's a static relationship because it's a transaction. It's something you agree on and do, but it is not because of the relationship. It's because you both get something out of it, right? From a standpoint that's more business than pleasure, depending on what you're buying. The other day, though, I went through and I was just coming back last night. Sherry and I stopped in McDonald's, and I was pulling through, and Sherry, I had to go to the washroom, and we were heading back here. And so I said, "Okay, you go to the washroom. I'll go through the drive-through. Meet me on the other side." And so I ordered our dinner through the intercom there, pulled around, and I had to pay the gal there. And then she goes, "Here's your ice cream," because Sherry wanted ice cream. And I'm like, and I'm trying to put my wallet back in. Have you ever had this happen to you before? Right? And the thing is, and this is where it showed that it was transactional, not relational, right? Because her boss is telling her, "Get these guys through, because so we can make more money." And I'm trying to get my wallet back in so I can actually drive and not have everything flopping around all over the place. So she's trying to do what her boss is saying. She's not going, "Oh, I see that you're trying to put your wallet away. I will just wait a moment and not try to force you to take this," right? That's transactional. Even in some transactions, like if you get into real estate and stuff like that, or car sales, like people are very friendly because they want to make a bond with you, but it's still a sale. It seems relational, but it's really not. It's transactional. I mean, there are some times where you can have a transactional relationship turn into a relationship. Like like at our bank, there's some ladies in there that I talk to about their families when I go in, because they want to talk to me about stuff, right? That turned relational. Different waitresses in different spots, or it can turn relational after time. But the transaction is more static than it is relational. And those things we need to understand when it comes to things like dealing with God, right? You know, a lot of times people's relationship with God is all transactionally orientated. Lord, I need this. Lord, I need that. Lord, please forgive me of this sin or that sin. Lord, I need my friend to quit being an idiot. Lord, I need you to get my mom to... And it goes on and on. Because that's how we speak to him, right? And that's transactional. It's not bad. Like, you have to understand, these are things that we are supposed to do. Okay, but if that is all we have, then that's a transactional, static relationship. Correct? And that's not what we're supposed to be aiming at. If this is your case, then you have religion, not relationship with God. Here's a test for you, and this is a very difficult one, and I don't like this. Okay? So what if God never gave anything to you? Say he said to you, I'm sorry, but heaven's full. No more room for you anymore. Or, sorry, that whole sin thing you did, done deal, it's over. Would you still pursue him? Do you like him or what he can give you? Because that's quite a question for us. I don't like that question. But it's a question you have to ask yourself if you're going to be saying, am I in a relationship with God? Where am I at with that? Moses, at one point, said, Lord, if these people are not going to make it, then please remove my name as well. Because he was in the mediating situation where he was in relationship both between God and man. Right? And he was willing to kind of give things up in order to keep relationship. And God saw his heart in these type of things. All right? That one's a little bit more confusing back and forth for this, but it's of the same essence. All right? The thing is, I think God sees us in us on a regular basis. And he probably is disappointed sometimes. But he's not stupid. He's God. And he made us, right? I think we act like little children pretty well, often. We're like the toddlers that run up and say, gimme. Right? If you guys have little ones or have had little ones, you understand that it's a one-way street with them. You take care of them. It is not till older, that they have even the chance of taking care of you. Right? And I think often he looks at us as this, that we are his children. Okay? And he says that quite often. But that's often because we act like that as well. And that is not where the relationship should always go. Okay? From our positioning to his. Let's take a look in John chapter 15, if you want to turn in your Bibles. John chapter 15. It's a little more to your right, if you're looking for it. And we'll take a look at verse 15 there. This is John 15:15. This is Jesus talking, and he's saying this. I no longer call you servants. Okay, you once were, right? Servants are a transactional relationship, right? You do stuff for me, I do stuff for you. Right? But I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I will call you friends, which is dynamic relationship, right? For everything that I learned from my Father, I have made known to you. the fact of the matter, folks, is that God wants us in this transition. He wants us going from, we may want something from when we first arrive, but He wants to get us to the point where we have a dynamic relationship with Him. Right? We all want friends that are going to come over and hang out with us, not because they want something from us, but because they just want to hang out with us. I've been talking to a couple of guys out of Vancouver who've done some dating. They're on this online dating thing. And they'll take a girl out, and they'll take her out for supper, and then they take off and abandon the dude because they wanted a free supper, and their schedule is to go to something else tonight. Which doesn't seem very relational. And I didn't even know what the transaction of that one was, right? But this is something that I think we kind of function in with God a little bit. We come to Him. We like coming to church because we can have friends. And we get to hang out. And that's probably the biggest attraction for people who come to church often. It's not necessarily even God. Right? And when we come to God, we just talk to Him about the stuff we need. And everything is kind of transactional. And it's just not how it's supposed to transpire. If you want to experience God's power in your life, if you actually want to feel like you have a relationship with God, you need to move towards the relational more than the static, right? I'm going to explain a little bit how I go about it. This is not a perfect thing, so please don't take it as the way or whatever, but I can only probably kind of express a little bit how I interact with this type of thing. In the morning, I get up, and as soon as I can think about it, I say to my Lord, good morning. Hope you're having a good day, basically. Lord, if you want me doing something today, please bring it to my attention. If I should talk to someone, let me know. If I should be doing something, let me know. Please tell me if there's something I can do to be with you today. And I start like that. And through the day, I pursue Him in that manner. And I keep that in front. Now sometimes, I forget. Say something stupid happens and I get distracted and I don't have this connection time with Him. It's kind of like my cell phone reception sometimes. Like the other day I was talking to my buddy Tim Paquette, and I'm driving down the road. And I'm talking to Tim, and all of a sudden he cuts out. So I put the stupid cell phone down, and I got to wait till I go over a couple more hills, pick the phone back up, and it's ringing again, talk to Tim for a while. Then it dies again, so I put the stupid phone down and keep going. Then I could forget, after a while, if it's too long, I could forget and not phone the guy back. Right? And it's kind of like me, like I could get up in the mornings, and if I don't do this, I can go for 1-2 days. And I'm a pastor, guys. So I'm actually going and doing church stuff. Okay? But doing church stuff doesn't mean having a relationship with God. It means I'm doing church stuff. The two do not connect all the time. All right? Because you can't really be a Christian without God. Christianity is a relationship. It's not a transaction. And this is where often we do not understand this. But I think it happens pretty naturally often. Like if you, here's a story. My mother, my father passed away about 5 years ago. And my mom and dad were living with us. So my mom was continuing to live with us for a couple of years after my dad passed. And all of a sudden, one night, an old boyfriend shows up. She doesn't even stink and tell me. Okay, the guy's out in the parking lot, I'm watching TV. She sneaks out the side door, jumps in the car, off they go. I'm like, what? Like, what just happened here? And I'm all over, I don't know what's going on, right? Then she comes back, guy drives away, doesn't talk to me. She comes in the door. I'm like, what just happened here? This is not good. And she's like, hee. And I'm like, no, hee, what's going on, right? But anyway, I guess it was an old boyfriend who had dated her for years, and then she broke up with him, and then met my dad and married him, and off they went, right? But now this guy, his wife had died, and he came by, and they're 85 years old, okay? And so I'm like, okay, well, this guy's got to come in and meet me. We got to talk about this whole thing, right? But they're like holding hands and they're like, woo, hee, 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 poke, 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 poke. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is like 15-year-olds here. So I'm like going to play dad to my mom? Like, this is weird. So anyway, they got married and all this type of good stuff, and they're living happily ever after, so to speak, which shouldn't be that long, actually, at that age. But this whole concept of relationships, when it starts like that, when you see a young couple get together, they get married. Like I just did in the last few weeks, I've done 2 weddings out in Sparwood. All right? These young couples getting together, they get married. They're all excited about life. But in 10 years, when they have 3 kids, and there's diapers piled up everywhere, and there's mess all over the house, and there's food to be made, and people are screaming and stuff like that, and you have the guy on the cell phone trying to ignore life, right? How close is the couple? Well, they can separate pretty quick. So relationships, they're dynamic, right? They're dynamic. And in dynamic relationships, I think there's a lot of different things we need to understand and learn about them in order to keep them in the flow. It's funny, in Revelations, in chapter 2, verse 4, if you want to take a look at that. In Revelations chapter 2, verse 4. Revelations is right at the very end of the Bible, way to the right. It's the last thing. Revelations 2, verse 4. And in this verse, it says, it basically says, I am quite disappointed in you, right? Because you have lost your first love with me. You have dropped that first love with me. I am very disappointed in this. And he's talking to a church, a whole group of people. If you take a look in Revelations chapter 3, verses 15 and 16, if you read down through that section. And I'll get you guys to read it there. Revelations chapter 3, verses 15 and 16. He's saying, you're not cold, and you're not hot. You're lukewarm. Our relationship is lukewarm, folks. I feel like spitting you out of my mouth. Our relationship is not doing well. This is what God is speaking to the church. Dynamic relationships, if you're in them, they transform your whole day. Like even now, my wife and I, we go up and down in our marriage, but when we're having good days, I'm always bugging her. I'm always pursuing her. I'm finding things for her. It's dynamic, and I think about it regularly. When it's static, I'm not thinking about it. Things are not going as well. Right? Relationship is when you're engaged and you have time. But if you do have a dynamic relationship, I'm going to go down and throw out a few things that you will notice and you need to kind of aim at. One of them is if you're in an engaged relationship with God, is you're going to start understanding things about life. And you're going to start learning in positive ways. Like when I was a young guy and I had kids, my wife and I, we got married at 21. All right? And long story short, Sherry went to Europe for like 3 months. I was out in the bush working. I was planning on going to Bible college. She came back. She was supposed to move out. I was going to propose to her. She didn't know this. And when she came back, her mom said, well, you're not moving out to Vancouver. Not with that guy out there, right? Because I was going to go to Bible college. She was going to move, and our dating life. She's like, I don't trust this. This is not a good thing. You can go out there if you're married, but you're not going out if you're not married. So I find this out on the phone, right? So I propose, because I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous. My brother's taking off to Chicago in 2 weeks. I hadn't seen this gal, and I was like, fine, let's get married. It's a great romantic proposal. All right. But anyway, this all happens. So we get married, and it's all good, and I'm excited, and I get a job, and everything works out. It's amazing. And, and Sherry tells me, right at the beginning when we started getting married, like we're probably like 2 weeks in to get married, and she goes, Mel, I'd like to have kids right away. I'm like, okay, like this whole getting married at 21? All right. That was like a major step. I said, look, you have to excuse how I phrase things. You got to remember this is back in the 80s, right? So I said, look, woman, I can't get this through my head. I can't get over this married thing. I said, you want to have kids? Fine, but you're going to have to take care of them because I don't know what I'm doing with this, right? And she's like, okay, and off we go, right? So it was just like, oh my goodness, like this is just a crazy thing. But I did not know what I was getting into. I didn't understand, like I had a good background from my folks, but I was learning on a massive curve. How do you do this relation thing? How do I be a father? Oh yeah. Like by my third year, I was like, I was new into a job, trying to figure out how to do a job. Like my life was in an absolute turmoil. I would come before the Lord and just go, Lord, help. I have no idea. Like, just help me, And then he would. Like, I had the most bizarre things ever happen in my whole life. Like there was nothing that I touched that didn't work from I'd be in we have no food. There'd be food. We have no money. And I wouldn't tell anybody. It wasn't like a broadcasting things, but he answered so many prayers, but also just directionally things worked out. Like I made choices that actually worked out, and I didn't have a clue. And looking back, there's no way I should have made the right call because I was that stupid. Let's turn in your Bibles to Isaiah chapter 30, verse 21. Isaiah 30, verse 21. This is a really good one. This is one that I like. And it basically explains that if you are in dynamic relationship with God, right, that He'll direct your path. It says, this is Isaiah 30, 21. It says, whether you turn to the right or to the left, it doesn't matter. Right? Your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way. Or that is the way, walk in it. And that's exactly what I experience. Is when I'm moving with the Lord and I have relationship with Him during the day and I am functioning, Lord, what is it you wish me to do? What do you want me to do? And I am playing in His field in a dynamic relationship. I am functioning with Him. He goes, this is the way. And if that is the way you go, you're in His will. Turn in the Bibles also to Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. This is another one. It's really well versed verse. That's good. A V and V. But I think sometimes when we know a verse really well, we don't always pick out what it actually means. Or we forget. Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. And lean not on your own understanding. But in all your ways acknowledge Him. And He will make your path straight. Right? If you are in dynamic relationship with Him, things will track for you in that way. He will point you in His will. Not your will, but His. If you're in a dynamic relationship with Him, you will begin to recognize His presence wherever you go. And that is a very true thing. When I'm tracking with the Lord on a regular, and I continually speak to Him on a regular, and I'm not turning my cell phone off for Him, so to speak, things just work out, and you know that He's there. Let's take a look in Psalms chapter 139. Psalms 139. That's in the middle. Look at verses 7 to 10. Psalms 139, 7 to 10. It says, "Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you're there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast." Sometimes, you feel like a little kid walking along the side of a river. It's kind of dangerous if you fall in. And your dad's got a hold of the back of your shirt, making sure you go the right way. But you start to grow up in that. But Jesus made the promise, folks, that He would never leave us nor forsake us, that He will always be with us. But you have to be in a relationship with Him in order for this to take place. This is relationship, not agreement, not transaction, but relationship. Now, if you're in a relationship with Him, your character will start to slowly form towards His character. I've been in ministry for about 34 years now. I don't know how many interns I've had. I've had a lot of interns. That just means guys that come and they live with you, basically, and do ministry with you every day. All right? Because I'm such a smooth, eloquent speaker in so many ways, they pick up some of my habits of speaking and my terminologies and this type of thing, and they get accused of speaking like me quite a bit. And I them, to a degree. But it's because we've hung out so much. Right? And they end up doing some of the things that I do, and I end up doing some of the stuff they do. Because we've hung out so much. This is the same with our relationship with God. We do not do the things that we have to do to be a Christian because we have to do them. We do these things because we've been rubbed by hanging out with God. And we spend time with Him, and so that's what we do. And we like Him because that's what we do. It is not that we do these things so we can fill in all these different things we need to be able to pull off as a Christian. That is not how that transpires. It is the exact opposite. His relationship flows through us. And that's how it plays out. I guess many people work at becoming like Jesus. And I think there's a lot of good things you can try. But I think the biggest thing is getting to know Him. And that's what I really wish for you guys today. I wish for you to know my Lord. My Lord is awesome. In my own life, He has changed how I think, how I do things, how I treat my wife, how I treat my kids. But it's not because I have to go do these things. It's simply because I've been able to hang out with them as much as I have. It's rubbed off on me. And because I have pursued Him and chased Him relationally, that He has changed my life on the inside. And we have a good relationship in that. And this is what I challenge you folks. And if today you're saying, I don't know what that is like, this is a very easy fix, folks. Jesus has already died for your sins. He has already done all this stuff. The path to God is wide open. All it is that you need to go talk to Him. Now, it's not a matter of just believing in Him. I need to tell you that. The devil believes that there's God, and it doesn't do him very much good. Right? You need to actually be in a relationship with Him. You need to pursue Him in that matter. This is what I wish for you. This is a good morning, folks. And if today is the first time that you're thinking about doing this, please do this. You will not regret it. If your cell phone with the Lord is kind of cacking and you're not getting the reception, you can fix this today as well. You can pursue Him. Pursue your relationship with Him. You're not going to regret it.